Welcome to part 3, all about growing a personal brand. As I mentioned in part 1 and part 2, it's 22 years officially since I began growing my personal brand. And this has brought up lots of reflections, lots of thoughts, lots of feelings, like what did I do? What's helped me? Now, this is just to say, and I'm sure you've guessed this already, it's not like I'm like, okay, so 22 years later, I now have all of this sorted out. Because clearly I don't. And clearly everything is up for debate. Everything can twist, can turn, can change. And actually that's part of growing a personal brand, that ability to be nimble, to be flexible, to change, to listen, to grow, to do all of the things. Today I've got some more journaling points and some things that have really helped me and some prompts that you can turn around and play around with. And my aim with these is for you to be able to take them and almost just pick them up whenever you need them, and almost be those phrases where you can almost come straight into the present moment where you're like, okay, that's what I need to do. I think so often when we're trying to grow or change or do all sorts of things, we can feel stuck, we can feel trapped, we can feel restricted. And actually, if we can find a way to snap out of it, essentially, or really listen or be able to connect with our intuition, our instinct, it's going to help you. My first question today is, what needs your attention? And this is, again, about really listening. It can be really easy to go through the motions, to answer the emails, to think, oh, I better post something on social media. But what actually needs your attention? And this may not just be in your business. This may be in your life. Maybe you need to drink more water. Maybe you need some early nights. Maybe you need to pay attention to your creativity because you're feeling stuck. Maybe you need to get on top of your money situation because every month you seem to be in that sort of feast or famine cycle and you're ready to go to the next level. When we ask ourselves that question of what needs your attention, for me, it really focuses me because attention alerts something in my head. It almost gives me that sense of, right, it moves me into the practical, essentially. And so often over the years, if things have not been happening or everything feels a bit stuck or, I'm full of self-doubt or any of the beautiful colours of the human experience and the emotions that we all have, when I ask myself what needs my attention, it makes me become practical and it moves me almost out of my head into a sort of a clap, right, let's go. Because I am looking constantly for things that break that cycle. Because if I am not paying attention, if I am not finding ways that I can really connect, really zone in with what I need, I can get myself stuck in cycles. We all can. I'm so tired. I don't have enough time. I don't want to give you ideas to fuel your cycle. But it's easy. It's easy in this world at the moment to get stuck in those cycles. So try that question. See what comes up for you. The second thing I want to touch on today is to ask you what gear you're in. And I would say at the moment, I am in a strong 4th, moving into 5th. That's where I feel in my business at the moment. I feel like I'm in a sort of like, right, let's go vibe. This quarter of the year is always really good for me. And I have now got another day of childcare. My son's at school. And I'm also really picking up on lots of ill health. Lots of people around me or in the conversation. And I have a real sense of, I better get on with it. I better crack on. because time marches on regardless. And so I am really being in that stage of fourth or fifth gear and really doing the work. Now, that's not to say that once you're in fifth gear, you kind of coast along. Definitely not. You've got to have your wits about you. You've got to have your reaction time still going on. But that's where I am in my life and as in my business right now, because I can be. There are times also when I have known that all I can do is be in first gear, second at a push. Second at a push if I'm going round a bit of a wibbly corner. And that's all I can do. Here's where you will get more information. If you are in first or second gear, and that is all you have capacity for right now, and I've been there so often in my life where I'm like, I'm just can do the bare minimum. I don't want to be stretched. I don't want to be pushed. I don't want to be in a growth state. I want to stay cozy in my comfort zone and do the things that I need to do, and that is it. Here's the thing that I notice, and here is the practical thing that you can play around with. If I am in first or second gear, I cannot expect fourth or fifth gear results. So what I mean by this is sometimes we might be in this state where it's like, well, we've only got 2 hours a week to work on our business. Okay, well, then you might not be able to get the results with that input that somebody who might be able to have 40 hours a week on their business, you're not going to experience the same output necessarily. Now, there are going to be some people that are going to faff about and they're going to not use those 40 hours. And it's not necessarily about hours, it's about focus and what you can do. But I know that if I am in my head going, right, I'm in fourth or fifth gear and I'm going for it, I'm stretching myself, I'm having quite a few ugly cries at the moment as well, because that's what often happens when, you know, you're stretching, you're growing, you're trying things out, you're experimenting, you're pushing yourself as well. It brings up a lot of stuff. But because I am in that growth state at the moment, I am expecting those growth results. And so this is what I want to ask you today, is being honest with yourself, not only where you feel you are, but what you have capability for right now. What gear are you in? And therefore, what results should you expect? And also, if I'm feeling like I'm in fourth or fifth gear and I'm not getting those results, I need to look at that as well and go, okay, why am I doing those things? Or maybe I need to work on my patience, or maybe this is the long game. But again, it's about tweaking. When you're growing that personal brand, you're like, okay, what's happening? Okay, is this working? How does this feel? Da, 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 da. Okay, number 3, what brings you results in your business, in your life? Where do you get that payback? Because we want those results, whatever they are for you. I am somebody who also likes instant gratification sometimes, but I know that I have to play the long game. But these reflection moments in my life, in my business, have really helped me, because I know that I am a hard worker. I know that I've got energy and tenacity and I'll keep going. Like, I remember at my dance school when I was a kid, like, I got the hardest worker in the school 2 years running, because even though I was 5'2", quite curvy, I was like, okay, I'm going to work on this. I'm going to still do this. And there would be girls who were like 5'8" with these long legs and being able to do things naturally. But I know that I have that in me. However, I have also learned that growing my personal brand has not just been about sitting my bum on this seat, my big chair energy for 8 hours a day. That isn't what just gets me results. There are so many other components. And I spoke about this in a video recently of that my hot yoga subscription is about to renew again. And again, part of me was like, oh, this is an expense, and maybe, I don't know, should I be doing this? I need to renew it. Not because it's a business expense, because it isn't, but it helps my business. It helps me. It helps my mental health. It supports me to where I'm going. So sometimes it's those different results. Maybe it's like that absolutely amazing coffee that you know that you need at 11 a.m. Maybe that's what brings you results. Maybe it's putting your clothes out the night before. Maybe it's meal planning or whatever it might be. Anything that makes you feel good. Ask yourselves those questions, because you know, you are the expert of you. You know what you need and what will help you. So feel free to tune into that. Number 4, what is your equation? So when I'm talking about equation, this is about you really understanding who you are, who your client, your customer, your audience, your gig, your contract, whatever it might be, and the result that it then brings. I think so often it can be easy to be vague because we want to support everyone or we want to help everybody. And this exercise really, and it helps me as well, it really focuses me. And it doesn't have to be that elevator pitch of like, I'm Nikki and I help people to build a personal brand equals da 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 da. Sometimes it's asking those questions of why do people pick you? Why did somebody hire you for that job? Why did your name get put forward? Why are you the go-to person for X, Y, and Z? And this is a really lovely spider diagram to do as well. And just be your own hype person for a moment. And I know that sometimes I've got jobs because I've been there on time, because I've learnt my lines, or because I sent a lovely thank you card afterwards and something happened. Like, I know that those basic sort of things that our parents might have taught us, those kind of like be a good person things, I know lots of those have stood me in good stead. So ask yourself, get really clear, like, what is it about you that you bring to the table that nobody else has? And this is about delving into your skills, your background, your unique combination. I've heard this in my speaking gigs lots of times where people have said, oh, I've heard that concept before, but I've never heard it spoken about in that way. And that kept happening. And I kept looking at, like, why was that? And it was about how I broke down the information. I knew that it was because I wasn't doing corporate slides, you know, in that royal blue where it's like, hi, here's my slide, here's my pie chart, here's my graph. No, I'd rather tell stories. I'd rather role play with people. I'd rather do live rapid fire Q&A questions in the room. It's about looking at all those, because that's what's going to make you memorable. That's what's going to make people go, gosh, we should call her, like, she'd be great for this. And that's how you keep building those blocks. The final thing I want to say today is, are you available? Can people contact you? Are you available for hire? And sometimes that is about doing those practical things of making sure your calendar's up to date, making sure your contact form works, making sure that you reply to people on social media, making sure that you do those admin, but also making sure that you reach out to people, you share updates, you are that person who is that connector who will be at front of mind with somebody. And that's a really lovely moment to be in, where you're building relationships. And I think so often people lead with that sense of like, oh, I'll make friends with her, or I'll email her, or send like a terrible corporate gift because they want to like get something. Instead, just build a relationship with somebody. Just have that human connection with somebody. And another thing that I want to say is, are you available for what you want? And therefore, do you need to, if you're not, do you need to change the way that you work? I remember really clearly at the end of 2014, I made a decision to stop any sort of scheduled work every week, every month. And that was a really big, risky move for me at the time because I didn't have a backup plan. And I definitely wouldn't recommend that people do that. But fortunately, it did work out in the end and that was all fine. But I knew that I wanted to change the way that I worked. I knew that I wanted my life and my business to work in a different way. And what I was finding was the work that I wanted to do wasn't possible to fit into the schedule that I was having. And so sometimes it's about looking at your own availability and making changes. I am at that point right now where I've got lots of stuff going on and lots of things that I'm doing. So I'm going to bed early and I'm getting up an hour earlier before my kids wake up. And that's the phase that I'm in at the moment, because I'm in that growth stage and I don't want to be in a scarcity mindset and like, there's just not enough hours in the day. But you know what? Sometimes there aren't. And sometimes if I get up that hour earlier before anybody else and when the house is quiet, I know that I reap the rewards from that so much. Like, I know if I set up for my proper work time where I'm like, okay, I've done the things, I know what I'm doing, I eliminate about half an hour of faffing about. So that really works for me. But really ask yourself, and go back to part 1 and 2, and ask yourself what you want to be known for, what you're all about, and have you got the capacity for it? I spoke about this in another episode recently of when we got a new sofa. And the first thing, I'm definitely the creative one in the house. And Matt, even though I am logical and practical, like I'm not a Wally, but Matt will be the first person who will say, how big is it? Can we measure it? What's the space? How are we going to get it through the door? Etc. He's that person. And that's what you have to do when you're bringing something into your life. You can't just expect that there's automatically going to be space for it. And I think this narrative of like, you can just keep doing more and being that person, and there's so much reward for being in that, being that person who does all of the things. There's going to come a point where it becomes claustrophobic, where it becomes too much in a room. If you keep shoving like a big sofa into a room that's crowded with loads of furniture already, that's not going to feel good. So I keep coming back to this sense of feeling good. If you want to bring in different kind of clients, different kind of projects, you want to make space for a hobby, or you want to do some personal development or a course, or like I do, they've brought a new piano into the library, and I used to play as a kid, not very well, but I thought, I'd like to do like an hour a week where I go with the headphones and I try and revisit what I used to be able to do, because I would love to be one of those people that can just play the piano. I need to make space for it. So in my head I was like, okay, how can I fit that in? Because it's important to me. So today, look at your schedule, look at the way that you're working, and maybe track your time. See what's going on. How are you spending your time? What are you doing? Are you getting that result that you want? That's it for today. If you want to find out more, do go to my Work With Me page, nikkiraby.com/work with me page. If you haven't visited my freebie page, that's a really good place to start as well. There are loads and loads of videos in each room, so I call it my Freebie House. There's a goal setting room, there's a digital room, which is all about online presence, and also there's a money room, and more rooms will be opening over the next couple of weeks. But if you like this kind of content, if you like this sort of long form, thinking about stuff, doing your own work, those rooms are going to be perfect for you. If you haven't already, follow, subscribe, rate, review, all of that good stuff. And I'll see you tomorrow for part 4. Lots of love. Bye.